to the August 11th, 2014 Carson City Visitors Bureau Board of Directors meeting. I'd like to have Linda's here. Call to order, please.
Renee Plain.
Here.
Jesse Dami.
Here.
Jonathan Bolware.
Here.
Stan Jones.
Present.
Karen Aboud.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Sorry, that was a roll call, not call to order. I'm losing it. All right, can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Public comment? Any public comment or discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll move on. For possible action, adoption of agenda. Any changes to the agenda? Anything we want to move around? Now's the time to say.
No changes.
All right, get a motion.
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Next up, possible action, approval of minutes from the July 14th board meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from the July 14th, 2014 board meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, next up, board discussion and possible action for election of officers. Current officers, Jonathan Bolware, Chairman, Stephen Lincoln, Vice Chairman, Jesse Dami, Secretary Treasurer. So I think we'll, I guess we'll start off with Secretary Treasurer. Do we have any nominations for that post?
I move to nominate Jesse Dami as Secretary Treasurer.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Congratulations, Jesse.
Thank you.
Just keep your emotion down. It's killing me. Excitement. All right, Vice Chairman position's up next.
I move to appoint Stan Jones as Vice Chairman.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. And last but not least, the position of Chairman.
I move to appoint Jonathan Bolware to remain as Chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. That was easy. All right, next up, possible action approval of the 2015 budget report.
Okay, in your packet and added to your packet, you will find, of course, it took the first year to get used to my budget reports, and now I'm going to throw a curveball at you. And this is the first report that actually represents the reports as they come out of the HTE system for the Carson City's financial network. The first is 8% of the year lapsed, and it's a 3-page section, and this is just the revenue. I'll kind of give you a quick brief of how the reports will look moving forward. Your first set of columns, you can see that you've got the 7,200, which is the account listing that we have with the HT system, and Tourism Authority Administration. So when we break out the revenue, we will break out the revenue per the 3 accounts, and the 3 accounts being the administration for the Visitors Bureau, in addition, the V&T capital projects, and also the capital projects fund.
Hey, Joel, can you help me out here?
You bet.
Where are we at? What sheet are we on?
The 3-page document there.
3-page document.
Oh, it's the one that was here. It was
The top, it'll be titled Revenue Report.
it was put on here.
Oh, I missed it.
This one.
I don't have it.
Oh, here you go. Okay, so on the top of the revenue report, 8% of the year, the HD system will always calculate exactly where we're at based on when we run the report. This report, once again, is at 8% of the year. On the first page, this 7,200 Tourism Authority Administration, this would be the Fund 740. So this is basically the Bureau's portion of the revenue. Coming in at the first column, you can see current. That'll be the current report. Then the second set of 3 rows you've got, or columns, you've got the year-to-date report, and then the annual and unrealized revenue. So you can see that we budgeted $849,751 for the portion of room tax going to the Bureau, of which we is year-to-date current at the, let's see, bottom up, I'm going to go 84,856. Total distribution of 7,955.28, and that's to the 3/16 for the Carson City Field Maintenance Agreement. That's the money that goes to the Youth Sports Association every month. The 3/8% that goes to NCOT accounted for $5,303.52 for July, and for a total of $7,955.28 going out of our revenue towards intergovernmental expenses. The next set, and when it comes down to the 310 columns, you see the intergovernmental. This is where we will report any income. If there's income from grants, right now you can see we had budgeted $25,000 for grants for the fiscal year 15. We will actually change that because we received 10 of the requested $25,000, and there's one additional grant that we received in the cycle that actually overlaps 2 fiscal years, so we'll revise that for the next set for you. On the bottom, you'll also see revenue coming in for the gift store, which each one of these, you see the account numbers. It'll start with a 34760, 34761. These are revenue accounts that come through the HTE system. So you can see that we're actually at revenue right now, bottom line, at 9.76% based on 8% of the year. So I know it's a little different, but I think you can see that you've got the 3 columns. It'll make a little more sense next month when you see what the year-to-date total is versus the current, because it's just a duplication of a lot of numbers right now because they're the same in those 2 columns.
I was going to ask you the current. What is that, the month turn? When we look at that, it's going to be for the month?
That'll be the month reporting.
Okay, and then the other question is, this is, the estimate is the budget.
Correct.
Now, what happens if, for some reason, we're either going to go over or under that budget? Is there anything that allows you to readjust this estimated number?
We will. We'll actually not only do an augmentation with Department of Taxation, but we'll do an augmentation with the city. So we can change that number anytime that we report it as a board and we decide that we need to change that up or down, then we'll change it within the budget report.
But question, will it change? So let's say this 850,000, that's what we budgeted, right?
Correct.
So let's say, we're going to come in at 875,000. Would you change the 849,875? Or where would any changes to the estimate be reflected in this report?
Yeah, they would be on both, not only the revenues. I would definitely do an augmentation to increase the revenue projections at any time we felt that we were going to have $20,000 or $30,000 more.
Yeah, but question,
I'm sorry.
Does that go in the estimated? When you say you'll change it, where does it?
Yeah, it'll go in the current estimated. The last column, there'll be the annual estimate and the current estimate. We would change the current estimate to reflect the change.
Right.
And the annual estimate will be set at that 849. So the 850 will still be reflected in the annual estimate.
Okay, so the annual estimate will always remain, so we can always see what we budgeted, and this will
Exactly.
change according to how the year's going. Okay,
Yes.
got it.
And then the same thing when we change those expense reports. If we see an increase in revenues, then typically we would see maybe an increase in our marketing budget. You would see the same in those columns. Okay?
Joel, I'm not sure if this is a spelling error or what. Under 347, is that supposed to be culture and recreation? Okay.
Yeah, we'll, and we're not going to throw anyone under the bus, but we'll have the city finance take care of that. So, but yeah.
Well, while you're on it, the asterisk portion under awarded, that needs to be corrected too.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll take responsibility for that one. All right. So the second and third page are just the same exact format, but this is a report of both the Fund 742, which will be the capital projects fund for the V&T. The third, same thing, same reporting, same columns. You've got the reporting for Fund 742, which is the V&T capital projects. So we'll keep those two separate in reports, and also if and when there's any expenses related to those funds, they'll be reported separately as an independent budget. Any questions on the revenue? Once again, revenue right now, $79,587.08, and that's reflecting 9.7% of what was budgeted in 8% of the year lapsed.
It's probably too early to rebudget revenue, right? 80%.
Yeah.
We probably want to take a look at it once more. 20%, 25%.
Yeah, I do. And I think that once we get in closer to the LCB session, I think that's when we'll really be able to reflect what kind of increases we're seeing. Okay, because I know that we definitely projected very low.
What month is this, Joe?
This is the revenue is June's revenue. The expenses reflect July, because we're always 1 month behind on all of our room tax revenue. So this is actually June.
So this is for the last financial year?
No, it's actually this financial year. Your June, even though fiscal year expenses will go through June 30th, your revenue, because of the room tax collection, will be 1 month behind. So June of last fiscal year is actually this fiscal year's revenue.
Because you collected
Because we
them in
collected
July.
in July.
Okay.
Correct. Okay.
So it's going to come about the same. Because next year you will do the same thing.
Exactly. I'm glad, great question. I'm glad you covered that. So any questions on the revenue report? Okay, expenses, same thing. We've got the first page, and this is I think there's 8 pages. On page 1 of 8, you'll see the detailed budget worksheet for the administrative budget. The administrative budget is the catch-all. This is the breakout of everything that we have from our marketing, our visitor center, and our grants collectively, because it's all part of our budget. So we'll still report as an administrative budget on the first one. Once again, 8% year lapsed. You can see down that year-to-date total. Going down, there's a few of them I'll go over real quick, but most of them are coming in at about 2 to 3%. But when you get down to the building rental, we did cut the $3,000. We budgeted $1,200. The $3,000 actually, we're going to switch that over to the operating expenses, that's where it's actually been over the course of the last several years coming out of operating. This building rental, 0440, third from the bottom, that's actually the $1,200 that's budgeted for the rent for state lands. That's the portion that we would pay state lands for the actual property. So that $3,000 will go down. That'll actually go back to zero, and the $3,000 will be reflected next meeting in the operating expenses. Office equipment rental, the 57. This one, I'll break that out again too, because we budgeted the 2,600, but a great deal of the office expense, actually this 1,500. And correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but the lease agreement on our standard black and white copier was up. We had an option of purchasing it for $1,500 or sending it back and paying for the shipment for about $1,800. And it just was one of those that we didn't anticipate having to cover that cost, but we did elect, obviously, to purchase the machine, and we will look at any type of a service agreement in the future, but I really don't think that there's a need. Our Rico machine that we use for 99% of everything we do will meet all of our needs if and when this machine breaks, but it's working fine now. On second page, 2 of 8, this is once again, staying with the administrative budget. The insurance premium, right now, you can see that reflects 21.35%. That's actually the payments. We've increased our insurance because we purchased the Willys, so our marketing van is now part of it, so we will switch the budget around and increase that dollar amount based on our quarterly payments. Continuing down, bottom line, when you look at the overall expenses, 8% of the year lapsed. We've spent $13,083.55 of the $308,000 budgeted, reflecting 4.24%. The rest of it, once again, that's a collective budget of everything behind it. So 3 and 4 of 8 is the marketing budget, which is part of that report. Page 5 and 6 is the visitor center, which is the gift store. Page 7 and page 8 is our existing grant that we've actually spent money on. We do have another grant that we haven't spent any money on it, so there's nothing to report budget-wise.
We're asking, Jeff, do you have, on this report, is there total expenses?
Yes.
Yeah,
So if you look at on page 2 of 8, total expenses, this is year-to-date, everything that we've added. Under year-to-date total, which would be the middle columns, you've got $13,083.55. That's the total spent, which reflects 4.24% of the budget.
Yeah, but is that for everything? I mean, this 300, I guess this 308,000 that we budgeted, is that for all, that's not for all expenses, is it? No, it can't be. Like, the total expense that gets deducted from this 850 15,000.
Yeah, that's all of the administrative costs, the
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So
308,000.
what's the total? I'm just looking for a total number of all the expenses.
I think you have to add 308 to the two fund payments.
So we have to
Yeah.
add now? There's no, it doesn't,
No,
I gotta bring my calculator to add everything up?
I
Yeah.
can do that for you. I'll
We-
add it to the budget.
We'll have to create a secondary Excel sheet outside of the HT system to
I like
do
the other
that.
report better, I'm just letting you know.
I know. We're trying to simplify our reporting side.
This is, now, because I liked it before, because it would, when you can automatically look to see if you're over, but, I mean, are we in the black, red at the bottom line when you deduct all the expenses?
You know what? I will add a cover sheet that looks exactly like the administrative budget
Yeah,
I
help us.
prepared for you the last year, because I have to say, it is very simple. This one, we'll probably add a half hour to every one of our meetings going through this. I'll add that administrative detailed report as a cover sheet, and this is backup. I could tell you right now that looking at it at 4.24% of administrative costs, we're there. I mean, we're 1 month in, and it doesn't even reflect any of the revenues, because our revenues will come in next month for July. That's really when I start to look at making sure that we're balancing what we're spending compared to what we're making. So I will. So I'll do the cover sheet no differently than we've done in the past. The grant, we have a budget for that grant of a total of $20,000, of which we've spent $4,000 total, reflecting 20% of the grant project. So that seems to be, the numbers are correct, but the report is certainly different, and it is a little difficult to read. So I will bring you a cover letter that looks exactly like the rest of the budget reports. That grant is actually to implement 30 augmented reality experiences within the community. So now we're actually getting to the point where we're truly doing the augmented reality.
So right now, there's no change to the bottom line of what we budgeted for 14-15, right?
No change, and no need, based on the current expenditures, to foresee any change.
Okay, now I know we're going to talk about the lease.
And all of
But then
those
that-
changes will have to come back next month.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll see how that, because that's what I want, when we add that in there, and then how does that whole agreement affect?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it certainly will, and I will show you where, in looking at that lease agreement, how I looked at the budget to be comfortable that we could afford that, not only with some new revenue generation, but obviously some additional costs in administration and marketing. Okay. So, any questions on the report that makes absolutely no sense right now?
It makes sense, it's not very user-friendly.
It's not user-friendly.
Yeah.
Did you want to call?
Yeah, I'm sorry, public comment on this report? Okay.
I move to approve the fiscal year 15 budget report, even though it's a bit confusing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes, thank you. Next up, for possible action approval for ratification of monthly bills.
Okay, first in your packet, you will find a report dated 8/4/14, 7/35/31 on the top. This is the expenses for July date. If you go down the list, once again, you can see that top one of $4,000. That's the first of the augmented reality experiences. Going down, I won't go over all of them, but just the large ones. The Carson City Chamber of Commerce, once again, that was the $3,000 that we provide to not the land lease agreement, but that's actually just to the joint ownership agreement. Both the Chamber and the Bureau put in $3,000 a year going towards expenses within the facility. We have added more to that in the past, and I'll go over when we go through the lease agreement, some of those anticipated expenses that we won't have not owning the property if we move forward with the lease agreement. Going down, once again, just business as usual with a couple of the contract employees. The Divine Nine, the 6,500, that is the portion the partnership between both the Carson Valley Visitors Authority and the Carson City Visitors Bureau. We both put $6,500 towards the Divine Nine Consortium each year, so that we did pay that ahead. Going back to the report, you saw that we were, about 70% of what was budgeted, because we do spend, I think we budgeted $10,000 towards golf projects. Continuing down, the $2,000, that's the last of the payments under the last year's contract for advertisement for Nevada Magazine. And the rest of it is just, once again, business as usual, the $1,551 for the 4 cents per copy of all the printing that we're doing for the RICO. Any questions on the detailed expenditure checklist from the GMBA accounting fund? Okay. The second is the breakdown of credit card expenses, and this is still actually a breakdown that we're providing through our accounting system through QuickBooks. Just a detailed breakout of all of the expenses throughout the month for credit card purchases. The only of which that was a large purchase is near the bottom, and it was the last of the 60-second ad for the NV150 fair for $2,205. And the last one also is the vital signs. That is actually going towards the grant project. We're going to start putting banners, additional banners up here over the course of the next month and a half, actually starting tomorrow with some of the brackets, but I had to purchase additional brackets for all the banner projects we're doing, not only on Carson Street, but also on Curry Street. So that's the breakout of all of the credit card purchases for June 25th through July 25th. Any questions?
You said banners, how about Fairview, or where are we there on the Fairview?
Yeah, that once again is a grant project that we will have finished. I'd like to get those up by the end of this year, working with Public Works. The grant project will end by June of next year, so we certainly will have them up before that. And yeah, those are the ones that will actually depict all of the new images that we're using. A portion of this, actually, we did do the NV150 banners first that are on Carson Street. Now we'll start putting up the Experience Starts Here banners. Okay.
Any other comment? Any comment from the audience about monthly bills? Okay.
I move to approve the ratification of the monthly bills for 2014, July 2014.
Second that.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. Possible action approval for executive director to execute a lease agreement to relocate the CCVB to 716 North Carson Street.
Okay. In your packet, I did update the lease agreement, the proposal. The one that we're working with does not have page numbers at the bottom. And the change is just the from estimated square footage to the actual square footage. So on the back page, if you're looking at Exhibit A, lease payment schedule, the payment amount in column 1 would actually be $3,284. That would be the current one to look at. So I was presented an opportunity a little over a month ago. There's a new landowner that purchased the building at 716 North Carson Street. I know we've talked about as a board and as a bureau about the need and the desire to relocate downtown. Not only being able to create more of an economic engine for the businesses downtown, but for us to be downtown and create that synergy. And we'll obviously have additional opportunities for revenue generation running a gift store. We did look at several different pieces of property throughout the last year, originally looking to purchase, not to lease. There really was no ideal location. I can say, looking at the square footage of this property, the property located at 716 North Carson Street is on the corner of Washington and Carson. It would be replacing the real estate office that's currently at that site. The square footage is just under 2,900 square feet, which is a little bit more than where we're at. We're currently at about 2,200 square feet. If you really was to design a perfect location for us to have storefront, have the required office space, have the storefront on Carson Street, and have enough space for what we do now with our in-house printing, it really is ideal. I do believe that it will provide a significant impact for the downtown businesses, being that we have anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 visitors currently coming into our visitor center, and I don't think we're getting near the visitors that come downtown. I just don't think they come up to where we're at. It's also difficult, as you know, to give somebody information, then send them out the door and expect them to get in their car and go experience all that Carson City has to offer, especially the downtown. So it shares a city block with the Nevada State Museum. It shares parking that is city parking with also the state with the museum. It meets really all of those requirements that we were looking for, the square footage and also the additional parking. Current concern with RV parking, looking at the off-street parking and on-street parking, looking at Washington and a couple of the lots that is city-owned and available for public parking, just one block off, I don't think that there's any concern. My biggest concern in looking at a lease agreement or even purchasing property downtown was what happens with our current joint ownership of our existing building. As you know, we jointly own the building with the Chamber of Commerce. Earlier in the year, I know that the Chamber was looking and wanting to relocate downtown also, and I was prepared to come to you as a board with a buyout agreement that was offered from the Chamber of $100,000. The original construction cost of the building was $150,000. Staying true to the offer that was coming from the Chamber, I asked Ronnie, and Ronnie went to her board, the Chamber board, and the Chamber board did elect to vote unanimously that they would buy us out of our existing ownership with the building, and they would give us the $100,000 that we would ask. So that would get us out of our current ownership. We don't own the land. We're in a 20-year agreement with the state for the land where our current building's at. Regardless, I still feel that the Bureau needs to be downtown. We have about 2 years before that freeway comes through. We're doing a significant improvement to our downtown corridor, and I do believe that we have about 1.5 to 2 years to market Highway 50 as that gateway into our community. That puts us one block from all those visitors coming in. So any questions? A couple of things that did come up during this process I'll go over real quick. Some of the expenses that we incur as property owners currently that we would not have as part of this lease agreement. Once again, we actually provide $6,000, not the $3,000. That's just the first payment. So $6,000 towards the joint building fund, and that pays for things like some general building maintenance, the trash, water, some of the supplies, the repairs and maintenance. Just this last year, we spent $3,550 on repairs and maintenance. That's the AC repairs and some electrical repairs, and also some installs. We needed some additional electrical needs with the new equipment that we brought in. Standard supplies when it comes to restroom supplies was $400. Cleaning service, we currently pay $1,920 for cleaning services. We spent $450 just over the course of the last month and a half for pest removal, and landscape maintenance for last fiscal year came in at about $1,200 over and above the joint building fund of $6,000. So the total just in fiscal year 13-14 ending last June, we spent $13,520. Going over the budget, I'm confident through some of the revenue generation that we will be able to create, being downtown and being tied to some of the events, having an opportunity to have a storefront that's open during some of the major events like Nevada Day, like the wine walks, like Taste of Downtown. I think that we'll be back into the public eye and have a lot more opportunity to have the store. The e-store will be opening up over the course of the next couple of weeks. I think that James said confidently within the next month he'll have the e-store going. And once again, I know that that will certainly generate some additional revenue. That being said, there will have to be some cuts. We're going to have to continue to look at how we're operating. I think it's worth the effort for us to relocate because of the significant benefit that it plays for the downtown businesses. And as a responsibility of that, we'll have to make some cuts. We'll trim a little bit here and there, but I certainly think that we can easily afford the lease agreement. The lease agreement would step up over the 5 years, starting at $1.15 a square foot, which looking at, I actually did send this lease agreement out to a couple of commercial realtors within the community. They looked at it, they said the lease agreement is very standard. The lease agreement came in a little lower than what the going rate would be, anywhere from $1.20 upwards of $1.34. The agreement that is before us would come in at $1.15 a square foot the first year, going to $1.20. The second year, subsequent years, $1.24, $1.28, and $1.32 for the 5-year agreement. Total monthly payments, the first year would be $3,284. And ending the lease agreement September 14th of 2019, where the monthly payments would be $3,770. Hopefully you've had a chance to look at it. I certainly will try to answer any of the questions on the lease agreement. I've gone through it as detailed as I can. I also do have a copy of the joint ownership agreement with the Chamber of Commerce and have gone through that. I do not believe that we will incur any costs. I think we can just do a transfer of deed with a transfer of payment between the Bureau and the Chamber of Commerce, eliminating some of the costs of escrow. So,
Joel, do you know what the utilities run in that building, in the one we're proposing?
Actually, right now, there is not a single meter for that square footage. It's actually metered for the entire front side of the building. So it will have to be broken out based on the first billing of usage, because we will be the single tenant of that, and that will determine what those costs are. There has never been a single tenant. There's always been multiple tenants within this facility, at least that front section. The front section and the second floor is all single metered. It's not, it's 1 meter. It's not single metered just for that square footage.
Second question, is there accommodation for the Willies to be parked so it's prominent?
Well, I can tell you that by purchasing the Willys, we actually could park that in the office still if we wanted to. Yeah, it certainly will be able to be used right in that front section for marketing purposes. That is the best billboard we could ever have.
I have 2 questions, Joe. What is the timeline on transfer of property and payment of $100,000 with the chamber?
We could start the process because they've already unanimously passed it through their board. We could start the process tomorrow with a lease agreement entering September 15th and the transfer of payment and process of the ownership agreement starting tomorrow. We could start immediately with the chamber. They're prepared.
And second question is, this is a 5-year lease. Is it possible that you can talk to the landlord and see if there's a break if you make 1 annual payment instead of 12?
Absolutely. I think that's a good idea because there's certainly that opportunity for us to do that. We're certainly within the financial means to make a 1 year's payment, which certainly could help a new not only owner of the property, but being the single tenant. So yeah, I'll pursue that.
I talked to Ronnie Thursday or Friday, I'm not sure which, and she said that they would cut the check whenever. I mean, once the board approved it, she's ready to cut the check. So that's not a problem.
And Joel, a 5-year lease is pretty typical for this. That's what it said as well.
Yeah, exactly. A 5-year lease is, beneficial for us so that we have we can do some groundwork and we can market and advertise, not have to change a year from now addresses and everything that we're doing. After that 5 years, I think we'll revisit and see where we're at and see if we're, I think that with the construction of what's happening downtown, I think this location's ideal. I don't think we could have found better square footage.
So yeah, I like the space as well. So you think the additional amount of money that we're going to have to pay for lease will be covered through expense management and through revenue growth?
Absolutely. I can take care of that. I can certainly work the same magic that we did to cut $200,000+ out of last year's budget. I can certainly do the same thing. One thing I don't have a problem doing is balancing a budget, and I will certainly balance the budget with the new lease agreement.
Is 30 days enough time for you to pack up and move?
Well, it is if I have a moving company. So we've actually started, just in case, preparing ourselves, and we should have some estimates in within the next couple of days because there's really nobody wants to move just in town. Everybody wants the mileage. I do believe that there's at least 2 local moving companies that are willing, if we box it up, to go ahead and move it for us. I don't think that week of moving, it'd probably do me in. So no, we certainly, the 30 days is doable. I think that what it provides us in having to crunch internally, it gives us a window of opportunity within the standard visitor season of at least a couple of months of us being downtown.
I've noticed there's a comment in the agreement here on signage. Have you talked to him about signage, electronic signage and that sort of thing?
Yeah, actually, great question. The benefit of what Steve Kaplan is the new owner, and they're actually going to be rebranding. Right now, it is the Washington Street, it's not square, I think they're calling, what's it? Station, the Washington Street Station. It will be rebranded when we enter the facility as the Carson City Square. As this Carson City Square, he'll be doing an LED sign. He's going to install an LED sign as part of us coming into the building. And in addition, we can do our own signage so that we can and I've already been by the facility at least 100 times and tried to look at the ideal location of having visitor information and the Carson City logo. So we certainly have an opportunity of the signage. The square footage, we did change on the initial walkthrough. There was some square footage on the back that made sense for the print shop to move into the back. But most importantly, there was some additional square footage that we could forego the back and move the visitor center with a lot more Carson Street exposure for everything that we sell. So we've opted to go after the 940 square feet that has its own secondary entrance as a store. So I think that'll better meet our needs. So once again, we certainly, I think it's worth our investment in Carson City to relocate the Bureau downtown, and it's worth the effort that we have to do to trim our budget a little bit and make it work. So.
How much remodeling do you think you're going to have to do in the space?
A good question. There definitely will be a little bit of remodeling. There is 2 offices that there'll be a non-weight-bearing wall that'll have to be removed, and the landlord will be taking care of all of that at their expense. So the only additional changes that we'll do when we come in is just making sure, once again, that we're hooked up to the city's network. And that'll be done through the same relay system that we currently have. But one of the biggest benefits for us is we're finally landlocked into a location that we can get a secondary internet provider. Right now, we just absolutely have the worst internet that you could possibly imagine. We sit and wait for our computers, so that'll be a huge benefit for us. Great.
In the existing location, we have a boardroom that we sometimes used on the 2nd floor. Is there one here where we can seat 10 to 15 people in case we want to have a small meeting?
Yes, there is. There's actually, there is a current conference room, and I believe that's exactly what the seating is 10 to 12.
But who owns the furnishings in that other room upstairs?
That's a good question I did not look into. I'll have to find out if we jointly bought the equipment. I would have to think that if we were buying Ronnie out and Ronnie was moving, I can tell you that I would have thought that by giving a check for $100,000 to the chamber that we would be buying the equipment that was jointly owned. So I think that moving over, I think we'll look at, I don't believe that table would actually fit in the current. It's a little bit longer and narrower. So I think that I would be more comfortable saying that we'll leave everything with the exception of our own desks and all of the furniture downstairs, that we'll leave the conference room furniture for the chamber if the board's comfortable with that.
There will be some additional cost apart from the 3,000, some.
Yeah, there'll be a little bit of moving costs. One thing I will throw out is, and certainly it's not part of the lease agreement, but I was surprised that in just walking through the property, the landlord has a couple of foundations, and they made a contribution, a donation to the Bureau just for walking through the property. They're very invested in Carson City. There has been a promise that if we were to be that anchor tenant, that there would be an additional $10,000 that would be donated to the Bureau from the foundation that represents the landowner. I think that $10,000 alone would more than pay for some of the new furniture that we would need after the move. So I think that was a great offering that certainly didn't need to come, and it certainly doesn't influence us in making the lease agreement, but it'll certainly help us.
One other comment, I noticed Saturday they painted all the trim around the building, so they're preparing for whoever the new tenant is.
Any other comments? Any comments from the audience? All right, we're ready to make this happen.
I move to approve the CCVB Executive Director enter into a lease agreement for property located at 716 North Carson Street for the relocation of the CCVB office and visitor center.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, Joel. Non-action items, you're up.
All right. In your package, you've got the Executive Director's Report, first page. You can see that reporting in June of 2014, we had 970 visitors. July of 2014, we had 1,286 visitors come into the Visitor Center. Breakdown of where they're from throughout the United States. You can see that, once again, the majority of those visitors are coming in from California. The international market has stayed pretty strong, with Canada being one of our primary international markets. International 52 visitors of the 1,286 came from international. Looking at the top, total groups. This is if and when we collect the data. If we can collect from groups, you can see that the majority of those, with the exception, we had 211 of the groups staying in Tahoe, 148 in Reno, 204 in Carson City coming through the Visitor Center. So that, once again, 1,286 up from 970. Second page, occupancy rate for the top 13 properties reporting June. We were at 57.78% for the top 13 properties. And once again, reflective of 2013, this would have been the last of the month included in the session, and only a portion of that, but we were showing a decrease as compared to 13 of 12.67%, and down slightly 4.18% from June of 2012. Looking back at June of 2013 and 2012, there was a pretty significant bump in those 2 years, but it's not identified to a single activity. It's not related to an increase, a new tournament, a new event in town. But if you look at the growth in 2014, we stayed a little more consistent. So not really sure. I'm sure we'll see those spikes, but it certainly is the first, negative spike that we've seen in comparison to a positive spike in the past. But overall, if you look at the bottom line year-to-date averages, the most important comparison would be the 2014 to 2012, being that they were both non-legislative council bureau years, and it's showing an increase in 2014 of 6.88% and down 8.77% as a comparison to an LCB year. And that's, once again, top 13 properties. Top 5 properties, we're coming in at June at 70.43% occupancy. That's the numbers are pretty consistent in comparison to just the 2013 and 2012 June year-to-date totals. Actually up a little bit. In comparison to 12, we'd be up 9.07%, down 4.83% from last year in a LCB year. So next year, I think next month will be a pretty strong indication of where we're at in comparison, not having to account for LCB rooms. July, and looking and talking to a couple of the properties, I think July is going to come in pretty high. I think July was a pretty positive month for most of the properties. The average room rate for the top 13 properties was up 5.5% compared to 2013, up 9.37% compared to 12. We came in at $68.51 as the ADR for the top 13 properties, compared to $64.94 and $62.64, 2013, 2012. The top 5 average room rate went up to $88.23. That's an increase of 7.47% from last year, coming in at $82.10, and up 5.12% reported 2012 at $83.94. Bottom line year to date, up 5.8 5.08% compared to last year and up 3.9% compared to 12. So and that, once again, that's just for the top 5 properties. We did go back and make sure that reporting year-to-date, that 5th property does change. So once again, we're always going to reflect what comes in month to month for what that top 5 property is. There's 2 properties that have bounced back and forth throughout the year between the number 5 and number 6 spot. Total revenues, all properties. We came in June at 1.436, so $1,436,114.67. That would be down 8.07% from last year, 2013 LCB year, but up 4.48% compared to 2012, a non-LCB year. Year-to-date total at the bottom, you can see we're at $6,459,674.08. That would be up just under 2%, 1.84% compared to last year, and up 11.93% compared to 12. Total revenue for the top 13 properties. Once again, this shows you that the top 13 properties out of the 1.4, they accounted for 1.3 million. So 1,343,672. Once again, pretty reflective of the comparison between 13 and 14, 7.46 down in an LCB year, but up 4.81 in a non. Year-to-date total, we're still up compared to LCB year last year, 2.2%, up 12.88% as compared to 12. Top 5 properties, 931,818 in June. That's down 6.47% LCB year last year, but up 6.45% compared to an even year 2012 non-LCB. Year-to-date total, 4,387,331.92, and that would be an increase of 0.09% compared to last year and up 12.7% compared to 2012. Same time period reporting. Trailing 12 report, once again, this is really kind of the heart of it. This shows you where we're at in comparison year to year. This is where we will continue to see an increase regardless of the LCB year, at least with the projections. We came in trailing 12 report at 14,019,352.47. That shows an increase over the same trailing 12 report from last year of 11.46% and up 18.53% compared to 2012 trailing 12. The year-to-date average, that would give us an average of 13,894,397.63. Once again, up 12.66% from last year and up 15.9% from same time period 2012. So we're still seeing a very positive trend, although right now the comparison when you're comparing to 2013 as an LCB year, I think next year we'll see that balance, next month we'll see that balance out. It's still very, very solid news when you're looking at where we're at trailing 12 over the last 2 years. Looking at almost, we're a little over 18.5% in comparison to 2012 and up almost 12% as compared to 2013. Once again, this is significantly higher than what we projected in our approved budget for next year. So that also, when I come back next month and we talk about the changes that I'm going to make within the budget, I'm going to project a little bit closer on what I'm really going to anticipate as a revenue projection for the additional costs we're going to see with the lease agreement. I have complete confidence it's going to happen. As you know, we approved a budget that was a little over $100,000 to the good. And these numbers are showing that that should be significantly higher than that. So, any questions on the report, the numbers?
I do have a question. Because we pretty much have data for only the last 3 years in here, but is this due to economic recovery that we are flat after a LCB year in terms of, revenue? Because if you look at total revenue, we are up 2% in 13 properties, and we are pretty flat in the 5. But how come we are 12% in all properties? Have there some additional properties that came in? Because if we are flat in top 5 and only 2% in top 13, how come a trailing 12 is up 12%?
Well, I can tell you, I can give you, well, I'll sit down with you, let's go over it and break it out. I didn't break out where the differences are between the top 5 and the top 13 properties. The trailing 12 report is significantly higher and continues to grow. We're seeing, you know what I could do is, why don't I draw a third report that is remaining properties rather than all properties, and I can draw a comparison back just 2 years. I can tell you that the data after 2 years, I'm not comfortable doing a comparison to occupancy reports because I'm not comfortable with the reported data. But the last 2 years, Chris and I have been able to go back and clean up, and I'm confident that we can do a report that would do remaining properties, and we can see where that increase is coming from in comparison. But I also think that you have to reflect that the average daily rate going up significantly, although you might see a small decline or status quo when it comes to occupancy. But when you see that significant increase that we're seeing in our average daily rate, that's certainly going to make up, a lot of additional revenue. But you're seeing that also, it has to be across the board in all the properties. We'd have to see that in those additional properties. So yeah, I have no problem breaking out those remaining properties as an individual report.
All I'm concerned is that if we, in the first 6 months, we have gained more than 1.5 million in revenue, 12,332,000 and 13,894,000 for the first 6 months. That's pretty significant, looking at 16% increase from 12 and another 13% increase over last year. If the numbers are right, that's a pretty good number.
Yeah, they're certainly, this is what's reported and what's turned into Department of Taxation. These are our numbers, so it's a significant increase. So
that's one reason you want to move, because the money's coming, right?
I am confident that we're doing very well. Okay. In addition, on my reports, I attended the Board of Supervisors meeting, and this was in regard to the facility use, the joint use between both the Parks and Recreation and the Boys and Girls Club in regard to the use of the MAC. I've since talked with the members of the Board of Supervisors, and we will continue to work and make sure that the Visitors Bureau is represented at the table when it comes to calendar setting. We have to be. We absolutely have to have some, dedicated use of time. My concern during that meeting was there was reference to the fact that if there was a given Friday or whatever, we would be given some opportunity of time. And that doesn't provide me, it's going to take me a year to go out and make sure that we get the right type of tournaments, first of all, making a significant and immediate impact for our business communities in those shoulder months. I do believe that there's some opportunities that the city and we could certainly help in looking at expanding out that interlocal agreement with the school district. Currently, the Carson City recreation programs utilize, and they're the majority user of all of the school facilities from 6 o'clock on, and that would be the 2 middle schools. Those are the real gyms that are available. They don't use those facilities on Saturdays or Sundays. I certainly think that if we were to displace any local recreation program use by bringing a tournament in, I'm confident that we could figure out a way to cover whatever direct costs the school district would incur in having some of those 3rd and 4th grade basketball players that play on Saturday morning playing at the school sites. So I do think that there's a lot to do to sit down at the table. Both Jonathan and I have talked about making sure that we continue to meet with each one of the Board of Supervisors, making sure that we continue to stress that we need to be a player. This is a significant game changer for the business community of Carson City. That being said, I know that this board supports, and I know that I certainly will continue to support, that the buildings and the facilities that are built, the primary user of those still needs to be our general public. It needs to be the kids. It needs to be the adults playing it. It needs to be the recreational use of our community. And we've maintained that balance, and we will continue to maintain that balance. But we certainly have to create this facility as an economic engine. I did get a chance to talk in front of the board during the meeting. The one thing that we need to continue to emphasize, first of all, about 24% of our budget through the interlocal agreement, through the 3/16% that goes to YSA, that goes to Parks and Recreation, about 24% of our budget goes to Parks and Recreation every year. So we are a player in everything that Parks and Recreation does. That being said, we've also identified that 35.1% last year of all taxable sales in Carson City came by way of visitors. That's the new wealth that drives our community. If these buildings are going to be funded and operated through sales tax, if they're going to be built through Question 18, then we as a bureau play a significant role in all of that, at least a third, at least 35.1% during 2013. That being said, we should be a partner. We shouldn't be a customer. That's my opinion. I want to make sure that we continue to work. I am very confident that we have the support of the Board of Supervisors. I'm confident we have the support of our mayor, and I think we can move forward and we'll continue to be a partner in sports tourism in the winter months with the MAC. So,
Real quick question on
Yes.
the MAC. Nothing's been specified as far as how the whole agreement would work, or has it been from community sports tournaments or that type of deal? How that all that's going to work together?
no,
We're still in the development phases?
It's still in the development phases. The only agreement that was made and it was passed by the Board of Supervisors at that meeting is that the primary user of the facility during programmatic hours would be the Boys and Girls Club. Outside of their programmatic hours, then the Recreation Division would take that. As per our agreement, and we need to go back to the Board of Supervisors, the MAC is not included in our interlocal agreement as a facility. We'll go back to the Board of Supervisors. We will have the MAC included as one of the interlocal agreement facilities, giving us right of refusal during that programmatic use of the or of the recreation facility. But that being said, in order to make the significant impact for these tournaments, we will need to work with the Boys and Girls Club. I'm confident they'll work with us. We're going to need some Fridays. We're going to need to be able to set up and have these tournaments starting on Friday afternoons. Right now, as you know, a lot of our tournaments, we have tournaments that start on a Wednesday and a Thursday, only a couple of them, but those are the ones that drive, 2 million plus to our business community. So this community has always stepped up and worked together. I'm confident we'll be able to do that moving forward, but we need to make sure that we're at that table. So. In addition, I've got a note here that I would like to ask Jesse to work with both Chris and I want to work on identifying the STAR report. Going out and looking at it, there's so many options, and I think that you're very comfortable and you've utilized the STAR reports in the past, so I'd like to, over the course of the next month, I'd like to bring that to the board next month and break out an additional report based on what opportunities are there. So if you were comfortable doing that over the next month.
Yeah, I'm perfectly available. Just let me know, email me, and then we can set up a time and see what are really trying to achieve and what reports can help us.
Yeah.
And I have one question for you. A few months ago, we met Mark Amadai about the federal per diem for Carson. Have you heard anything, because financial year is ending in roughly 45 days for the federal government?
Correct. I've had an opportunity a couple of times to talk to staff and also some of the staff from Washington, D.C., and they're very aware of the concern that we have. I've provided the data to show what the impact in the lowering of the per diem has played on the top 5 properties and how that plays out in, potentially, obviously our revenue would have even been higher looking at the downturn in occupancy rate, and we all are comfortable with the fact that certainly plays, or the lowering of the per diem rate plays a part in that. So I will continue to work with Mark Amadei's office and making sure that we stay involved and make sure that we get that per diem rate back up. And I think that we identified through this process that we're not the only community that's been affected by the lowering of the per diem rate. There's some other rural communities in Nevada that felt the same impact. I think that we have been impacted the most because obviously a significant portion of our visitors are business travelers. So, yeah, I will continue to work on that. In fact, I'll prepare a detailed report for next month for you, let you know exactly where we're at, and I'll actually get a report from his office. Okay. Normally, I would do a little bit of a marketing report also. I'm going to go ahead and bring that back next month. This entire last month has been pretty involved when it comes to marketing with the NV 150 Fair and getting it going. I can tell you that when asked, and I'm asked often as far as the success leading into the NV 150 Fair, and now that we've gone through the process and we've completed, which I would say was a very successful event. There's a lot of significant benefits that came to that facility that will play in our favor moving forward. The potential of an economic engine coming out of Fuji Fairgrounds is much greater now than it was a year ago. There's been improvements from shade structures through some investment from redevelopment that certainly I don't believe would have happened if not for the fact that we were going to hold the Sesquicentennial Fair. There's been some improvements with the electrical that will provide additional opportunities for event promoters. There's lighting, there's wash stations for the animals. There's been some very significant improvements to that complex that'll be beneficial. The NV 150 Fair, I had an opportunity to attend the 3 days going through Friday night, and talking with staff on both Saturday and Sunday, I think it was a great event. I think that it drew a lot of people from outside the area. I would not say that it was a significant impact to the rooms in Carson City the first year. But that being said, I think if you look at the occupancy that was available throughout that week with Hot August Nights and some other events, there wasn't a lot of rooms available. In fact, when we were looking for some additional rooms leading up to the NV 150, coming in for some of the staff, there were no rooms available. So it's a great problem for us to have, and we do have that, more than not, thank goodness. But it was a great event. I think that everyone stepped up. This community embraced the event. All the way up to the state level, all the departments within the city. I do think that moving forward, it gives us some groundwork to make some changes to make sure that, financially, that it's also not just an impact for the businesses, but we can maintain it through whatever promoter we have in the future. But once again, I think it was a great event. Outside of that, once again, I'll have Kyle Horvath will be here next month, and our meeting next month is on the 8th of September. I'll do a breakdown of not only where we're at with the marketing, but our social media changes. We've been developing and kind of expanding out that social media platform throughout this last month. We've got a couple of existing competitions going. The Beat the Heat competition, which will lead up to the eventual winner having a package donated by properties and restaurants here in town during the Nevada Day weekend. Right now, our focus moving forward, the Sesquicentennial event for Nevada Day is going to be a big one for us. This community will embrace that with open arms, and I'm excited to say that we'll be downtown during it. So we'll have a new location. I've got a couple of shows that I go to. I'm actually going to attend as part of Nevada Commission on Tourism at the end of September. I'll be going to the Bike Fest. We have a pretty significant event in Carson City. Significant is my word of the day, by the way. I'm just going to continue to say it. We keep track. I love the word. But we have a major event that the Carson City Harley-Davidson has put on in conjunction with Street Vibrations over the last several years. And if anyone goes anywhere around town throughout that week, I honestly believe that you see more bikes than you do cars throughout Hot August Nights. Carson City gets a significant benefit from what Carson City Harley-Davidson has put together. That being said, when asked to represent Carson City and the northern region at the Bike Fest 2014, which is in Las Vegas, I reached at the opportunity, grabbed it. I'm going to go and make sure that we market that event heavily and other events in the future, but certainly that event for Carson City Harley-Davidson so we can expand out. That being said, I think that's really all I had tonight. I know that we will be going over and posting for my annual review for the September meeting, so we'll set aside some time for that.
Just to add to that, for the annual review meeting next month, it will be an open meeting, and Joel will be signing the letter tonight that we are required to send him. It's required 21 days before the meeting that notifying that we're going to be doing an annual review. All of you will receive a copy of that, and that'll be in the public record for the next meeting. So that's why I wasn't on today. Some requirements that we had to go through in order to do that. properly. So that'll all be handled, and thank you, Chris, for all your assistance in that. There we go.
Last is I just wanted to actually say thank you, Renee, for stepping up. Renee Plain is our new board member. I look forward to working for you as I have the 4 board members throughout my first year. I think you're a great addition to the team, and I look forward to working for you.
I'm really excited to be here, so thank you.
Anything else for Joel?
Joel, because you mentioned Nevada Day, we are within 90 days away, and we will be in a new location. Can you please research cost of banner right at that corner facing north so that we can promote our new location to everybody that's coming to the parade?
Absolutely.
All right, any other public comment? Any board comments or announcements? I think Joel said it best. I wanted to welcome Renee to the first board meeting. I'm very happy to have you here. I thought you did a fantastic job in your interview, and that's why you're sitting here with us, and welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right. Possible action to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.